Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be looking at something. To be honest, it's not really common question, but once this question comes, it throws a lot of people off. And I thought I should make the video. I actually have a special request for this, and I said I'm going to make it for everyone. So in some cases they will ask you something like they call it arrow 1 or arrow 2. Don't worry, I'm going to make you the master of that today. So we're going to be looking at arrowhead blood phenotype interpretation, and I'm going to make it easy. Once again, my name is Dr. Emmanuel Obodo. I'm a specialty biomedical scientist here in the UK, and I'm also a lecturer in biomedical science here in the United Kingdom. Yeah, I did put my LinkedIn link here if you want me to have a chat with you, or you have any question that you think you would like to discuss with me directly. I'm more than happy to go through some few things with you. So let's get into it. So first of all, I'm going to start by explaining something. I said I'm going to make it easy, and I'm going to make it easy. My aim is that by the end of today, at the end of this, you should be able to master this, okay? The principle of what I want you to understand is this. When they ask you this question, there's a formula for it. But let's start with, once you see big R means that blood has antigen D. That means it is arrowhead D antigen positive. Basically, it has antigen D. It is antigen D positive. If it is little r, it means it is antigen D negative. It doesn't have it. If it is 1, sometimes when it is 1, people kind of understand. But when they give you this very sign, don't be confused. This sign is the same thing as 1. If you see this sign, if it is just 1, that means it is 1. If it is 2, like you're seeing it here, that means it is 2. Anyway, 1 or this sign, once you see it, it means that antigen big C is positive. Antigen big C is positive. When it is 2, or you have this, when it is numerical 2, or you have this very sign, it means that antigen big E is positive. This is the basic, and I want you to understand this now, okay? So once you understand this, then let's go to the next thing, okay? I'm going to take it gradually, then hopefully by the end, you will master everything that I want you to master. So let's look at the next slide. Now, if you look at this very next slide, I call it the rules of the game, okay? I kind of made this up. So the rules of the game is this. There's a formula. The formula, when you are writing it, when they give you the formula, whether it is arrow 1 or arrow 1 or arrow 2 or arrow 2, whatever thing they give to you, there must be C, there must be D, there must be E. So the formula is that it has to be C, D, E. The difference it will make is that is it going to be big C or small c, or big D or small d, or big E or small e. That's just the difference. But the formula is that there has to be C, there has to be D, there has to be E when you are writing it. Okay? Now, let me also give you detail like we said before. When it is big R, is D. That means D is positive. D antigen is positive. What it means then that when it is not, when you don't have a big R, if it is a small r, the D antigen is negative. And if it is negative, you are not going to write a capital D, it becomes small d. Remember, there has to be C, D, E. So once you don't see big R, if it's a small r, this D will be small letter D, meaning that the blood does not have D antigen. If it is a big R you are seeing here, is equal to D antigen positive, like I've said. And again, 1 or this sign means big C, okay? Now, if you don't see 1 or you don't see this sign, it's no longer big C, it's going to be little c. Because remember, there has to be C, there has to be D, there has to be E. The formula is C, D, E. So the difference is that is it going to be capital C or small c, or capital D or small d, or big E or small e, as the case may be. Now, when it is 2 or this sign into 2, that means it is big E. But when you don't see 2 in the formula given to you, or you don't see this sign in the formula given to you, that means there is no big E. And if there's no big E, it will then be little e. Remember, again, there must be E, there must be D, there must be C. The formula is C, D, E. Don't forget it. C, D, E. You must, it doesn't have to be, so you are not going to write big C, small c, no. I just put it little a because where there's no big C, that means you're going to write small c. Where there's no big D, that means it's going to be small d. Where there's no big E, it's going to be little e. So the formula is CDE. Okay? Now let's get to the next one. Now, the rules of the game again. If there is no 1, like I've said, if you don't see 1, it's now little c. Because remember that 1 is big C. So if you don't see 1, that instead of big C, you then write small c. Remember that 2 is big E. Therefore, if you don't see 2, then you now write little e. So if you see little r, remember that big R is big capital D, meaning that it is D antigen positive, like A positive, B positive, or as the case may be. But once you see little r, it means that the D antigen is negative, like O negative, B negative, A negative, and so on. So it is little r. Okay? So that is the formula. Once you understand this basic, you already know everything I'm going to be saying here. So let's go to the next one. Now, still the rule of the game. What I actually mean by this, let me tell you what I mean by this. What I mean by this, when you have 1, because you cannot see arrow 1, 2, it's going to be, so they may give you 1 or 2 as the case may be. So in most cases, once you see 1, which means big C is positive, most likely that what it means technically is that big E is going to be negative, because there will not be 2. And when big E is negative, that means little e is then positive. That's all I'm trying to communicate here. Now, let's also explain it this way too. Once you see 2, that means big E is positive. And because you cannot get arrow 2, 1, no. It has to be arrow 1 or arrow 2. So once they give you arrow 2, then what it means that big E is positive. Therefore, big C will be negative. And if big C is negative, little c will be positive. I hope you understand this. I think I should take this again. Once you see 1 is big C positive, and if big C is positive in the formula, like arrow 1, okay, they cannot give you arrow 1, 2. No, they have to give you arrow 1 or arrow 2. So once they give you arrow 1, that means there's no 2. And if there's no 2, then that means big E will be negative. And if big E is negative, that means little e is positive, because there has to be E then, isn't it? Remember I told you CDE. So where you don't see 2 then, okay, that means it has to be little e. Now, the same thing is applicable here. If they give you 2, like arrow 2, okay, what it then means that big E is positive, and they cannot give you arrow 2, 1, no. So big T, what it then means that big E will be positive, and big C will be negative. And if big C is negative, because there has to be C in the formula, small c will then be positive. So that is all I'm trying to communicate here. Now, let's look at examples. So this is where we're going to put this whole thing into practice. I'm taking it gradually before we get to the main thing. So they are not going to give you, in your interview, they will not tell you what is arrow 1. But I'm trying to explain this first. So when you see arrow 1, how are you going to write it? I've already written the answers for you. So this capital R means that there is D antigen positive. That's capital D. 1 means big C, because there is no 2. Remember that 2 is big E. Because there is no 2, then it's going to be little e. Sometimes people have a question of, so if it is R, why are we not writing D first? No, the formula starts with C, then D, then E. That's how it starts, okay? So now arrow 1, which is this capital R, is talking about capital D, which is D antigen positive. 1, capital C, okay? And because of there is no 2, then that means there's no capital E. That is why you have little e. Does that make sense? Now let's look at arrow 2. So in arrow 2, arrow is already big D, capital D. We already have that, meaning that the D antigen is positive. Because there is no 1 here, and 1 is big C. Because there's no big C, that means there has to be little c, because there must be C in the formula. Okay? Then because there is 2 now, it will then be what? Big E. Okay? So that's why arrow 2 is small c, capital D, capital E. Because the capital D is the capital R, and 2 is the capital E. And because there's no 1, it is little c. Remember that 1, like we've shown here, is capital C. Okay? Now, let's look at when they say little r. So now look at this little r. Please, during your interview, don't let them confuse you. People always get confused here because this one is obvious. When you see little r, it means that the D antigen is negative. That's why you're seeing small letter D. You cannot write capital D. So it's small letter D when you see little r. But then what that confuses people is this sign up there, up the R. So once you see that sign, if it is 1, it means it is 1. If it is 2, like I see here, it means it is 2. Okay? Therefore, when you say little r1, the little r is small d, 1 is big C, like we already know. And because there is no 2, it's going to be little e. Little r2, which is this sign times 2, okay? Little r2 means that because there is no 1, then it's going to be little c, because 1 is big C. If there's no 1, it's little c. And because little r is small d then, and 2 then is big E. That's the formula. So, meaning R1 here is capital C, big capital D, little e. R2 is small c, capital D, big E. Little r1, capital C, small d, small e. And little r2, small c, small d, and capital E. So that's the formula. So what does this basically mean? You mean that, what it then means that, when, for example, if you look at this one, what it means that this blood here, it has little c antigen positive, it has big antigen positive, it does not have D antigen. This one means it has big C antigen positive, it does not have D antigen, but it has little E antigen positive. This one means that it has little c antigen positive, it has D antigen positive, it has big E antigen positive. This one means that it has big C antigen positive, D antigen positive, and little E antigen positive. That's just what it means, okay? Now, let us look at the way they will ask you the question during interview. They may ask you, what is R1? So, you just need to know that R1, remember, is a formula CDE. The other R1 is also CDE. So, R1 means CDE. So, you just up to finding out, so how are you going to write it? R1, like we've said, 1 is big C, capital R is big D, because there's no 2, is little e, because there has to be E. Remember that 2 is big E. So once there's no 2, it has to be little e. So then you have little e here. Because it's R1, you need to replicate the answer, which is again C, big D, and little e. Now look at that other example. R2. Now there's no longer R1. Remember that 2 is big E. And because there's no 1 here, there's no 1 here, that means it's going to be small c. Does that make sense? So, but this is a capital R, that means there's D antigen. So you have little c because there's no 1, then capital D because this is big R, and then because there is 2, it is big E. Because it is R2, you need to replicate it. You just need to put this sign and put small c again, big D, and big E. That's just what it means here, okay? So this is how it will come in your interview. They will say, what is R1? Or what is R2? Or can you write the formula of R1? Or R2? What does it mean? Sometimes they will say, what does it mean? What, for you to be able to answer the question, you need to know what R1 is, R2 is. Once you write the formula, you can then tell them that R1 means that the blood has big C antigen, big D, and it has D antigen, and it has little E antigen. That's what it means. R2, what does it mean? You write the formula again. You say it means it has little C antigen, it has D antigen, it has big E antigen. That's it. Anyway, so now look at when they say little r1. This is the same thing as here, but it's just that it is little r. Because it is little r, what that changes here now from here is this D. Because little r means that it is D antigen negative, meaning it's a small capital letter D. So little r1, remember this sign here, I say once it's 1, like here is 1. If it is 2, it is 2, like you can see it here, it is 2. Okay, the sign is 2 here. So, but here it is 1. So little r1 means big C, small d, because little r means D antigen negative. So that will be small d, then little e. And because it is little r1, you repeat it again. So the difference between this and this is the capital D. So there's a capital D here, but there's a small d here. And the reason is because this is little r, while this is a capital R. Now, what is R2? This R2 is the same thing here. The difference again is because this is capital R, this is a little r. Remember that 2 means is big E. Okay? So because it's little r, it's going to be small letter d. Because there's no 1 here, it's going to be small c. And because there's no 1 here, that's why you have small c, little r, small d. And because there is 2, it is big E. And because it's little r2, you just need to repeat the formula: small c, small d, big E / small c, small d, big E. That's what it means. So again, what it means here is that this blood here has small antigen negative, D antigen, small antigen positive, D antigen negative, and big E antigen positive. That's what it means. While this one have big C antigen positive, D antigen negative, and little E antigen positive. That's just what this means. So that is the kind of things you are going to see during your interview. Let me show you more examples. So look at it here again. So you now have R1, R2. I've changed it. So I gave you before R1, R1. So now I've said R1, R2. So the R1, remember that the formula is R1. Then if they put in another arrow again, you repeat the formula based on what you have. So let's do R1 first. Because there is 1, is big C. Because it's capital letter R, is big D. There is no 2 in this R1 because it's just R1. So because there's no 2 there, you now put little e. But this one, say, is R2. So what it then mean that because there's no 1 here, it's going to be small c, capital letter R. That means big D, D antigen positive. And because there is 2, that means it is big E positive. So big E antigen. So R1, R2 will then be big C, big D, little e. And R2 will then be small c, big D, little e. If they give you this in your interview, what is R1, R2? You just need to work it out. Work R1 first, then work R2. Put them together. Then you can say it means that the patient, this blood has big C antigen positive, D antigen positive, little e antigen positive, small c antigen positive, and big E antigen positive. That's what this blood has. Now let us look at R2, R1. The same thing. So capital letter R, big D, 2, okay, means big E. There's no 1 here, okay, that will be little c. So that's why I have little c, big D, and big E. Then R1 means big C because there is 1, okay, big C, and capital letter R, big D, because there's no 2 here, little e. So that's the answer. Again, you just say what the blood has. So anything you work out, it means that that blood has that antigen. Now, look at this again. Little r1, little r2. Because it is little r, there's going to be small d, small d. Because this is 1, little r1, you have big C. There's no 2 there, you have little e. But there is 2 in this one, so but there's no 1 here, little c, okay, little d, and because of that 2 there, big E. Again, it means that this blood has big C antigen, it has big C antigen positive, D antigen negative, little E antigen positive, little C antigen positive, and of course big E antigen positive. That's what this one has. So let's look at this one again. So if you look at this is the same with this. The only difference is that the arrow is capital letter. That's just the difference. Okay, so that's the difference between this and this. So I know why I'm emphasizing this, because I don't want you guys to be confused about big R and little r. Now again, the last example here is the same thing with this one. The only difference again is that it is big R here, while this is a small r. So you have little r2 and little r1. Little r is small d, 2 means big E, because there's no 1 is little c. So you have little c, little d, big E. Now little r1 is then big C, because it's 1 is the big C, and little r is small d, and there's no 2, little e. Again, it means that this patient has, or this blood has, little c antigen positive, big E antigen positive, big C antigen positive, little e antigen positive, but D antigen negative. Okay, now let us look at another example. It's getting a little bit interesting now. So you have little r1, little r. I didn't put 1 or 2 there. Now I say little r1, little r. So little r again is small d. Don't forget, 1 is big C. There is no 2 there, little e. But because they just say little r, they didn't put 1, they didn't put 2. What it means then, there is no big C, there is no big E. That means what you're going to have is small c and small e. Once there is no 1, there is no 2, you are going to have, once there's no 1, that means it's a little c then. Once there is no 2, that means it's a little e then. So if you don't see 1 or 2, just know that it has to be little c, little e. So little r1, and little r means little r, D, 1 is big C, and because of his, little r1, little r means small letter D, 1 is big C, and because there's no 2, little, that means the little e then. But when you just have only little r, there's no 1, there's no 2, that little r is D. Because there's no 1, there's no 2, it's going to be small c, small e. So this person has antigen big C positive, antigen little e positive, antigen little c positive, and D antigen negative. Again. Now let's look at this example now. Little r2, little r. Little r2, little r. So this little r again has been explained already, is going to be small d, right? Good. So let us look at, because it's 2, little r2, that will be big E. Because there's no 1 here, it will be what? Little c. So little r2 then will be little c, because there's no 1, little c, small d, and big E, because there is 2. But little r, again, there's no 1, there's no 2, is going to be small c, small d, small e. Remember that this little r is for small d. So because there's no 1, there's no 2, that means it will be small c, small e. Okay? Good. So that's little r2, little r. Now let us look at little r, little r. When you see little r, there is no 1, there is no 2, nothing is, no number is put there, no 1, no 2. Very simple. Don't worry about it. Little r means small d. If there is no 1, if there is 1, it's supposed to be big C. If there is no 1, small c. If there is 2, it's supposed to be big E. If there is no 2, small e. Simple. So little r means small c, because there is no 1, little d, because there is d here, little e, because there is no 2. Then the other r, the same thing, little c, because there is no 1, small d, because it is little r, little e, because there is no 2. So that is why little r is small d, small c, small d, small e, small c, small d, small e. So what it means that this blood has little c, it has small c antigen positive, small e antigen positive, and D antigen negative. So these are the kind of things you will see in your exam when your interview, when they say little r, when they say R1, what it means, R2, or R1, or little r1, as the case may be. So we are going to look at further example to explain this more. Now, I just had to use this for example again for you guys, so we can now put it into practice. Interestingly, what I'm actually showing you guys today is also goes in line with antibody panel, okay? So, but let's not worry about that. So now, let's remember this whole thing that I've said, that big R is D antigen, 1 or this sign means big C, 2 or this sign means big E. And I said here, if there is no 1, okay, that means if there is no 1, instead of having this big C, you are going to have little c. If there is no 2, instead of having big E, you are going to have little e. And of course, if there is little r, it's small d. Okay? And once it's small d, that means it is D antigen negative. Remember that what you can see here means that their blood has that antigen. Okay? But small d, there's nothing like small D antigen, so that means it is D antigen negative. Anyway, let's see example here. Look at this thing that was given to you here from this panel, from this antibody screening cell panel sheet. So antibody screening sheet, okay? So look at this. You have R1. From R1, capital R1. So we know that there's going to be D antigen. Look at it, D antigen is positive. That's what I marked green. 1 is big C antigen positive. Look at it, big C antigen is positive. Okay? Now, because there is no 2 here, look at it, big E is negative. You see it now. Okay? Big E is negative. because there is no 2 here, big E is negative. Therefore, look at it, little e then is positive from our formula. If there is, I told you from our formula, if you don't see 2, it's going to be what? Little e. So that's why, because there is no 2 here, that's why you can say little e is positive. Now, let's go back to RU2. Now, because of it is R, capital R, D antigen again is positive, capital D. Now, because it is 2, you can see that big E is positive, okay? Big E is positive. And because it is 2, big E is positive, there will not be any little e. Look at it, little e is what? Negative. Do you understand? And of course, because it is 2, there will not be what? Big C. And look at it, big C is what? Negative. And if there is no big C, then that means there will be little c. Look at it, little c is what? Positive. Exactly what we've done in our formula, okay? Basically, what this is trying to show you, from here, you can know what you're expecting. And remember that this R1 does not refer to every antigen. It only refers to resource antigen, which is D antigen, E antigen, C antigen. Okay, that's why it is CDA. Okay, now let us look at this other example. This is on the antibody screening sheet. So I'm going to show you another one still on the antibody screening sheet. Now, this is R1 again. Because it is capital R, D will be positive. Because it is 1, big C will be positive. And if big C is positive, and because there is 1, remember, that means little c will be negative. Look at it. And if it is R1, okay, what it then means that there is no 2, meaning that big E will be negative. And if big E is negative, that means little e will be what? Positive. Because there has to be CDE. The same thing is applicable here. You have RU2. Capital R, D antigen is positive. Then, because it is 2, big E antigen will be positive. Okay? Now, because there is no 1, big C is what? Negative. And if big C is negative, that means little c then will be positive, because there has to be C. Now, and if big E is positive, then look at little e is negative, because 2 of them cannot be present. When you say RU2, because 2 is there, it's going to be big E, not little e. Now, let us look at little r. Little r means basically there is no D antigen. Look at it, D antigen is negative. And because there is no 1, there is no 2, watch it, look at this. Big C is negative, big E is also negative, because there is no 1, there is no 2. And if there is no 1, there is no 2, that means there has to be little c, there has to be little e. And that's why little c is positive, little e is positive. I hope this is making sense. Now, let us look at this final one, okay? This is antibody panel sheet. I just had to make this as an example, okay? So now, you are seeing R1. So I've highlighted the green, R1, because it is 1, big C positive, and because it is capital letter R, D antigen positive. Again, if you work it down, because big C is present, that is why big E is not present, it is absent, okay? And because of big E is because of big C is present, small c will not be what? Present. And because of big E is not present, then little e has to be present. Now you have R1, the same thing also happened there. Now let's go to RU2. Again, because it's capital R, D antigen is positive, okay? Because now it is 2, is not 1, that means big C will be negative. And if big C is negative, because there has to be C, little c will then be positive, okay? Now, because it is 2 then, RU2, that means big E will be positive. Look at it, big E is positive. And if big E is positive, little e then will be what? Negative, okay? Now, when you have little r1, little r, so little r means that the D antigen is negative. You can see it now. And 1 means that big C is what? Positive. Now, again, if you work it down through, that is what I have marked, okay, to show you what is positive and what is negative. So if you use what I've taught you, I want you to look at, can you be able to solve? I've already done it already previously. You can solve little r, little r. So what I want you to check here is that when you say little r, that means there's no 1, If they say little r, there's no 1, there's no 2. That means big C will be negative, big E will be negative, and because it's little r, D antigen will also be negative. But because they are all negative, then because there's no 1, there's no 2, that means little c, little e will be what? Positive. So I want you to use this and experiment and understand what I've highlighted here. So anyway, this is how, if they ask you any question on R1, R2, R2, or little r, as the case may be. Okay, yeah. So I'm not sure if you have any question. If you have any question, put the question on the comment section, and I'm happy to also discuss that further. Yeah, in absence of that, thank you very much for listening, and can I please ask that you subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and continue to share with your friends and family. Thank you very much till I come back your way again. Bye.